On today's episode of Faith and Focus, I'm going to talk about virtual reality. And with the release of the Apple Vision Pro, it seems like it's a timely time to talk about it. And I want to talk about just some thoughts that I've had over the past 12, 15 years and just some thoughts that I have moving forward and try to add some biblical clarity to the issue on an issue that maybe doesn't seem like it's all that biblical, although I think deep in our hearts we know this is a strange time to be alive. So that's what we're going to talk about on this episode. Alrighty. Well, as I said in the intro, we're going to talk about virtual reality. But first, of course, if you want to donate, you can text the word discipleship, which you just saw flash up on the screen, to 41444. You can go to my website at infaith.org/Dennis-Sotheby. You can find that link in the show notes as well. If stopsmallcon.com is easier for you to remember, you can go there too. It'll link you over to that website. That's another story for what stopsmallcon.com means. But those links you can find in the show notes if you want to support this ministry, this podcast. And of course, you can subscribe, you can like, you can comment. All those things help spread the word about the video. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can certainly leave a 5-star review. That's helpful, even if you think the show's not worth a 5-star review. What do you care? Say it's worth 5 stars anyways, and think up a reason why. It does really help. It helps with, again, the algorithm. It helps push the show. It helps give the search engines reasons to push it to other people, and there's something going on underneath the hood of YouTube and all of these social networking sites. I don't know how it works, but something happens with these things. And the more you interact with it, the more it helps. So I appreciate that. Having said that, we are going to be talking about the new the new form of tech that is out. And it's kind of creating this whole buzz on the internet for a lot of different reasons. And that is the Apple Vision Pro. And of course, the Apple Vision Pro is not the first one of these virtual reality things. Of course, the Oculus has been out for a while. Facebook's been doing this for a couple of years now, having these things. And so they've been out there, but it's really taken off with Apple, again, because Apple is kind of the big name. It's I think the elite people in Silicon Valley really like Apple. So anytime Apple does something, it's like the newest thing. And all the Android users are out there saying, whatever, us non-Apple users have been had all these features on our phones and our tablets and our tech for years now, but then Apple does it, and also it's the new and exciting thing. But they've got this thing, the Apple Vision Pro, that has come out, and it's like $3,500. It's insanely expensive, but of course the price on all these things is going to come down. It's going to be very accessible for everyone, and people are of course going to get it. Now, if you live in today's age, you probably have seen people playing these games where they have the goggles on and they're, they got the things in their hands and they're swinging their hands and they're doing all this kind of stuff, and it's virtual reality. It's what it is. And for, I would say, probably close to 12 to 15 years now. And in this episode, I'm going to kind of put on my my prophet hat, although nothing I'm saying has not been predicted or foreseen by anybody else. So I'm not claiming any kind of divine prophetic insight or anything, but I want to just kind of lay out what I'm seeing and what I've been seeing for about 12, 15 years. All the way back to, I'll bring up the image of Google Glass. You might not remember this. This was the big thing 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago. I think it came out about 2012. And you look at it, if you're looking on YouTube, they look just like glasses. And they got some little clunky little, prism looking thing in front of it, and very expensive tech, and kind of, again, clunky, not very useful. But this was kind of one of the first things. It was like this wearable technology that you could use kind of like a computer, and you can kind of do some of the stuff that this virtual reality does. Didn't really take off. It was kind of ahead of its time, I think. But as soon as I saw this, I thought, this is not going to be good. This is a couple years after the iPhone came out. I think I got my first iPhone in 2009, 2010, something like that. So this is a couple years after that, and I could already see, and at that point, I was, some of the guys I was mentoring and discipling at the time, I said, you know what, I don't like the way that this is going, and and I think that what I was seeing, and again, I'm not unique in this, but I do think that what was what was on the horizon, and this was coming out too at the same time that people on social media. This was before Elon Musk had Neuralink, which I've talked about before. We'll talk a little bit on this episode, but this was back when the big heads of like Yahoo and Google and these social media, Facebook, they were talking about wanting to integrate and foreseeing in the next 15 to 30 years. I think their goal might have been something like 2030 or something like that. It was, 15, 20, 30 years out in the future. But what they were anticipating and what they were expecting and what they were pushing was this very immersive technology where you the way they described it was you not only are you seeing social media, but you could feel then the emotions that, if people make a post about, their wedding, and you could see the joy in the picture, but to be able to have that emotion. And so they were talking about all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, have you been on social media? It's not a very happy place a lot of the times. The mental illness that has spiked since the smartphone revolution, the internet, as it is known now, social media. I mean, it's just mental illness has just skyrocketed. Imagine if all of that negativity that's out there you're experiencing and you're feeling, it's not going to be a fun and pretty picture. So even back then, I was seeing Google Glass. I was like, okay, this is where things are headed. And at the time, I had described to some of my friends, I said, well, this technology is obviously laughable now. It's in its infancy, but you can imagine, and I was playing with my iPhone, and it doesn't have the best camera, as some Google and Android users will testify. The iPhone camera's not as good as some of those newer ones, but I was zooming in like so far that I could see like fine type, like it was like a 25 times zoom, and I was able to read print, and it was blurry, but it could zoom in really, really far. And at the time, even with the iPhone 3 or whatever it is that I had at the time back in 2012, I was telling people, this technology is just going to keep getting better and better. And the technology that people are going to wear on their face is going to integrate so smoothly, and not be clunky and cumbersome, that people are just going to wear it, and not think twice about it. And it's going to have like the smart cell phone technology. And I said, you can just imagine the efficiency and the helpfulness that it would that there would be to be able to augment your vision. You can imagine thinking, well, you don't need glasses anymore. If you're looking through the screen that can augment your vision, it will just focus for you. It will be in perfect clarity. I would even say 1080, but it's going to be better than that. It's going to be like 8K vision, and you're going to be able to see. And again, it can adjust to your vision, and it will know exactly what prescription to have perfect clarity. And just imagine being able to zoom in, just like you do with your smartphone. You can point your smartphone and say, "I wonder what that book says on the other side of the on the room," or I wonder what does that store sign say over there. You point your camera at it, and you can zoom in. Imagine if you could just do that effortlessly with your vision, and you can just see. And then, I just thought, think of all of the things that we do now. Shortly thereafter, kind of augmented reality stuff started coming out. The Pokemon Go was a huge thing. You walk around and you got your phone, and you're essentially looking at the world through your smartphone, and you see the little Pokemon out there, and you can throw the thing at it or whatever. And then we start to see now filters. You can point at your face, and it will augment what you see, what is being projected. And I just thought, you know what? It's going to get to the point where people are just wearing this stuff all the time, because it's not going to be cumbersome. It's not going to be burdensome. And it will just cover your entire field of vision, and everything will be seen through that screen and through that augmented reality. And, we think virtual reality. Now what they're calling them is spatial computers. They're computers that are kind of like augmenting your space. And again, I was seeing like whatever you want reality to be, you will, they will make apps for that. They will have, skins for that. They'll have filters for that. If you're sitting in a room and you're just wearing these glasses, maybe you're not doing much of anything. I mean, I don't even know that you would watch TV so much anymore. You just have it right there on your screen. You could have a watch party with your friend. You're all sitting in the same room, but you're watching it on your glasses. So you're all looking at the same thing. You all have the exact same perspective. No one's got a bad seat in the house. And so I just thought, man, this is where it's headed, and people are just going to wear these things all the time. And if you're sitting in your house and you think, you know what, I don't really like, I painted my room, seafoam green. I don't really like that look, but until I can paint it, I'm just going to augment it, and I'm going to just change that, and I'm going to put a different filter on so my walls look gray or black or white or whatever color I want it to be. Or I want to just be able to look around and feel like I'm in a lodge. And if you've seen this technology, like a ski lodge or something like that, or a rustic cabin, and if you've seen this tech, it's incredible. And so that's where I was like, even 12 years ago, I was like, that's where things are going to get. And now you think about it, like what people will do to other people with that. Now we're seeing a confluence of people using artificial intelligence to undress. They'll take a picture and undress somebody, or put them in positions of, sexual promiscuity or sexual indiscretion. It's a huge issue. Taylor Swift just got involved in this kind of stuff. And so again, do you think that people aren't going to invent that kind of stuff where I can just be sitting, I can walk down the street wearing this stuff, and I can look at that person and think, well, that's a good looking person. I wonder what they look like with no clothes on. And and again, of course, it's not literally undressing them, but what do you care? It's augmenting reality so realistically that you would just be able to do that, and they would have no idea what you're doing. And if you're looking at your girlfriend and she's not looking all that hot today, well, I'll just slap a filter on her. I mean, we do that for ourselves now, right? When we put pictures on the internet, we'll slap filters on us to make our skin smoother. We'll look a little bit better or whatever. Imagine if you could just do that to other people. You say, I don't really want to look at my girlfriend right now. Let's just make her look like, whatever, Taylor Swift, Angelina Jolie. Now I just throw that, and she, for all intents and purposes, AI has filled in the gaps. That's what she looks like. And people aren't going to want to live in the real world. That's the problem, is people are going to get so accustomed to this. I mean, again, that's why I'm not saying I'm necessarily unique in foreseeing where this is headed, because you just think about what it is now. People are addicted to the online world. They're going to want to live more and more in that world. They're not going to want to take off these things. And I've told people, what scares me is it seems like we are, if you remember the movie The Matrix, if you're old enough to remember that, that was a result of this great war that happened between the machines, the technology, and humans. And then the machines subjugated the humans and enslaved them and put them into virtual reality. But this looks like we're just walking right into it willingly. We're not even putting up a fight. We're choosing to put this stuff on. Now you add this with what Elon Musk has going on with Neuralink now, where he is putting chips. They just did their first one. To put a chip where it's implanted into your brain and it hooks to your smartphone. Of course, in a few years, it's going to hook right to your Apple Vision Pro, and you can just think stuff. I mean, his ideal is he wants to be able to. You just can think. If you're paralyzed, you can just think, and it will help you to walk, and it'll cause you to be able to walk. It'll heal all these diseases. But of course, the other thing is it's going to create these superhuman, godlike abilities. It's going to give us telepathy. Again, just think of two people. You wouldn't even have to sit in the same room. You could be on other sides of the planet. But you can already kind of do this. And this is what Elon Musk talks about with us merging with technology like this, is he says you are already a cyborg. You are already somewhat hooked to machinery via your phone, but of course there's just the cumbersome nature of it, right? You have to, if I want to telepathically communicate with somebody else who's in the same room, or can be anywhere, but again, say we're in the same room and I want to say, man, look, do you look at Bob? How stupid his shirt looks, whatever. How would I be able to do that in the past? I'd have to get the person kind of whisper in their ear. Well, that's awkward. Well, everyone's on their phone. I can just shoot a message to a friend and they get it. And they kind of laugh and they can message back, yeah, he looks really silly, doesn't he? Bob's never the wiser, and we're communicating without really speaking words. But just imagine with Neuralink, we could either do it with the Vision Pro, either I just send it and it shows up on their screen that they're looking right at. They can see it pop up in the corner and they kind of laugh or whatever. But we can also, with Neuralink, what he wants to do is just to be able to think it. You just think it and the message goes to somebody else who's linked up. And, all of the technology that's coming down the pike that it's going to integrate, again, the abilities that people are going to have, they're not going to want to live in the real world. And so, so there's these videos coming, these pictures coming out. There's, here's two people with their Vision Pro. They're sitting at dinner together. And again, you look at it, it's like, oh, how ridiculous is that? Well, everything looks ridiculous when it first comes out, but it's going to become normalized. And again, they're sitting there. Who knows what they're doing? They're probably scrolling Facebook. Maybe they're on Instagram. Maybe their food doesn't look all that great, but they could add a filter to it. So, it doesn't look great, but it tastes good. So let's make it look like something, better than it really is. Maybe they're sitting at a restaurant and they're like, you know what? I don't really like the ambiance of this restaurant. Let's just add a filter. So now it looks like I'm sitting at and again, this tech is very immersive. I have never used it, but you can watch videos of it and people who've talked about it. It's very immersive. It's very lifelike, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. If you can just feel like, I feel like I'm sitting at a street cafe in Paris, and all the sounds are there. You got your headphones in, and there's just the sounds, the vision is all there. You do feel like you're there. And again, ridiculous looking, yeah, that's what people are laughing about it on the internet. You watch these, you check out this video, and I'll just play this really quick for those people who just watch or just listen. There's a guy skateboarding down the street. Looks like New York City. He's wearing the Apple Vision. There's this guy walking across the street. He's got the Vision Pro, and he's pointing. He's doing things like you would with your iPhone. You want to enlarge something, you do this kind of number. You got this guy sitting on a train. This kid, he's typing. He's just doing this. We thought it was weird when people talking about it with an earbud in and talking to themselves, but now they're typing. You got this kid sitting on a bench. He's just doing this stuff. Who knows what they're seeing? Who knows what they're? You got a guy here driving. Again, is there benefits? Yeah, there's probably going to be infinite benefits. Like to have perfect clarity, to see every danger ahead, to be able to zoom in, 100 feet with crystal clarity and see what road signs coming up, to have your GPS right there. Just all of these things that are, yes, helps, but it's just immersing you more and more into virtual reality. Actually, I'll show this other one. This one I pulled from I don't know if it was TikTok or YouTube or whatever, but just to show that, like, again, I'm not crazy to say, when I was like 12 years ago, people are like, you will just be able to adjust the room to however you look like. You take a look at this video of this woman.
I turned my office into an underwater cage.
So she's in like this kind of dark dank, and she's just clicking and dragging on all of her photos. She just clicks and drags and creates a green screen that has image of underwater. She looks like she's sitting and looking into an aquarium. And again, yeah, does it look perfect? No, not really. But she's in her virtual reality. She can just create the environment she wants to be whatever she wants it to be. People are going to be doing this. This is what's going to happen. And I was talking with somebody that the problem with this is it's going to force everybody into this environment. How soon? I don't know. Tech moves very quickly. Think about, again, from when the first iPhone came out to now. What is that, 15 years? Think about how many people now are kind of forced into having smartphones just by the necessity of life, and things are just going to move faster. The more the market demands these things are going to move much quicker. As Neuralink starts to roll out and starts to integrate into these things, and as people start to see the benefits of these things, which there will be benefits, just in the same way, the tech that we have now, the internet, there's limitless benefits unlimited benefit to having this kind of tech, and it's helped people in incredible ways. But there's also downsides. Just the social fabric that seems to be that seems to be tearing, the emotional wreck that people are in, the depression and anxiety that people are facing, that we know almost with a certainty that it's coming from the tech that we're using. So as much good as it's going to bring, what is the Faustian bargain that we're engaging in to have this kind of tech? And again, if you don't think it's heading this way, I don't know what to tell you other than, Christians are supposed to be sober-minded. Christians are supposed to be able to see these trends and see where the world is heading, and see, not just uncritically evaluate, uncritically consume, but we should be sober-minded enough to know, okay, what's going to happen when this tech gets rolled out? What are the consequences of, and again, we can't stop the advancement of this world system, but to just uncritically consume, you just think about what this is going to do to social life. And this is kind of, the other main point that I think is most important for Christians to understand, is that this is going to devastate in-person fellowship in the body of Christ, and church body life, and Christian fellowship. And again, if you don't think that this is going to happen, I don't know how else to tell you that you are incredibly naive. This is what is coming, and this is why I think we as Christians have to be sober-minded about this. And, again, it's a Romans 14 issue, which I've just recently talked about, and I'm hammering over and over again. I can't decide for you where your issue of conscience is in these kinds of issues. You have to determine yourself, what is this boundary? For me, I am convinced that where we're headed with this tech is not a good place, and I have to draw a red line somewhere in my own life and in my conscience between me and God. That is, I'm not going to do any of the VR stuff. I've never used it. I won't use it. I've got friends that use it, and they play the little silly games and stuff on it, but I'm just like, I'm just not going to do it. Again, I'm not saying that it's sin for them to do it. Again, it's Romans 14. But if you don't draw a line somewhere, if someone had drawn a line, I'm never going to own a smartphone, guess what? They never would own an iPhone 15. Because once you own it, you get hooked, and you're like, well, I want the next best one. All right, okay, I want the next one. Oh, mine's outdated now. And I get another one. It's so hard to then cut off and go back to just saying, I'm not going to do a smartphone. And in fact, what happens as the culture moves forward with these things is you're unable to go back. At a certain point, people are like, I don't want a smartphone. I just want a phone that doesn't have data, that doesn't have texting. Now, those things still exist, but they're becoming increasingly impossible to use, because eventually cell phone services just stop providing service to those phones. There's not enough people that want to use them for them to justify it. So they're just forcing you into using the thing. And it's going to happen with the VR stuff. I mean, at some point, it's going to force you. And how is it going to do that? Well, as I was telling with people the other day, when the metaverse rolled out, Facebook rolled out with Meta and their metaverse, and they had their, virtual reality, and they were kind of trying to make it a thing. And again, it was a little bit before its time, and it was kind of clunky. But they had churches meeting in the metaverse. They had an experience where you could go shopping in the metaverse, and you had your little avatar. You look like a little Nintendo Wii avatar, kind of walking around the grocery store, and you could grab things off the shelf and put them in your cart. In functionally under the hood, it's no different than going to Walmart.com and clicking add to cart, and you're searching, and you click to add to cart, and then you check out or whatever. But you're walking around in the virtual space. And again, the thing that's the reason why I believe that people are going to just get immersed in this, and increasingly everyone is going to have to adapt to this, is because life on the internet is where we're going, and it's where we're at, and where people are going to increasingly want to live. Our life is spent so much on the internet already that once we can just immerse ourselves into it, people are going to want to do that. Our language that we use with the internet. Think about Amazon.com or Walmart.com. They're called addresses. It's what's the web address? That's a location word, like you would on a street. It's 113 North Shiawassee Street. It's that's where the address. That's how you find the place. And we don't say, well, I logged onto the World Wide Web and I accessed the HTML or whatever https.com/Amazon, whatever. I'm dating myself like a boomer here, but you just say, just go to Amazon.com. Just go to Amazon. Just go to Walmart.com. Just go to the app. And we already use that language of going to that place. And you think, well, that's just language. We don't really go there. And that's something I kind of want to push back. And again, kind of raise the consciousness of to Christians, again, to just think critically about some of this stuff. That, do you really not go there? Your body doesn't physically go there, correct. But everything else about you does go to that place. Your emotions go there. We know that if you go to Facebook.com, your emotions are there. They're affected by what you're seeing. You're sad, laugh, happy, all this kind of stuff. Your will goes there. They advertise to you and they try to get you to buy different stuff. They're trying to distort your will. So your will is there. Your soul, your spirit, your mind are all there. You're making decisions in that place. The only thing that's not there is your physical body. So once they can create the tech that is seamlessly, that you can just sit on your couch, but you will physically in your virtual space be able to go to that place, people are going to desire that. And again, you might think no one's ever going to want it. Why would I want to go to the store if I can just go to the website? Well, the reason you're going to want to is because God created us to be incarnational beings. He created us to be, yes, soul, yes, spirit, yes, mind, yes, will, yes, emotions, but also a body. That's something that's part of us. So we desire to be in a body. When Paul talked about, when we die, we shed this human body. We're like naked, disembodied spirits. We desire to be embodied. So we're longing for a resurrected body because that's who God created us to be. We want to be able to have a physical body that does things. So that's part of being human. And can you just go on your Apple Vision Pro or whatever, and you can probably go to Walmart.com? Yeah, you can. But just imagine a world where Walmart or whatever the store is not going to look like Walmart. It's not going to cost them any money to build a store that looks like however you want it to look. It could look, if you like the aesthetic of walking through the Mall of America or something like that, or through a shopping farmer's market in your small town, that your Walmart.com experience could look like that. It'll be whatever you want it to look like. But that experience of walking through the shopping mart and seeing the things, not I'm going to Walmart and I'm going to search for sour cream and add it to my cart, but walking and seeing the impulse buys, the doing it with your friend. So again, you log on and you see, oh, my buddy Jimmy, he's online too. Hey Jimmy, I'm going to go to Walmart.com. Do you need anything? Yeah, I'm going to go with you. And then you both show up at the store together, and you can walk around, talk. You can look over like you're actually walking with him, talking with him, interacting with him as you're shopping like you would at a normal store, because we desire that. We want to have that experience of going to Walmart and being able to touch and interact with other people. So people are going to desire that. And again, if you don't think that that's the case, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to get to that place. And the sad reality is, if you don't draw a red line, you will eventually get sucked into that place, because it's just going to become easier and easier and easier. You're going to be able to justify more and more and more, to the point where you're chipped up with the Neuralink. You're living completely immersively in the virtual world because it's more convenient. The downside is, for Christians, people are going to replace in-person church experiences. We already saw with the metaverse, churches that were meeting in the metaverse. Again, it was so ridiculous that people kind of laughed at it. You walk in and there's just this empty virtual Nintendo Wii looking auditorium with 3 or 4 little avatars. But people kind of did that stuff during COVID. But people are going to increasingly be like, why get up and go and actually have to deal with all this stuff? deal with crying children and all this, when I can just tune that stuff out if I wanted to, and I can sit there and I will feel like I'm literally sitting in this church. And again, if you're like, I go to some dumpy little church where the carpet's dirty, you'd be like, I can avoid all of that stuff by just, I can make it whatever I want. I can feel like I'm sitting in Joel Osteen's church. Why you would want to do that is beyond me. And you can have the sermon right there, and it'll feel like you're right there, and you can look over and say, oh, look, Jimmy, he came to church too. He's right there. And that's what's going to happen. And again, we're going to get to a point where if 75% of the people do all of their shopping online, they go to walmart.com and just have it delivered to their house rather than going out. Walmart's going to say, you know what, listen, it's not in our best interest to have brick and mortar stores anymore. It's a waste of money to hire all those people, to build all that, to heat it. And churches will make that same decision. They will make that same call because the American church functions like a business. It's not in our best interest to keep the doors open for this physical location when only 25% of the people actually use it. It's a losing proposition. So they're going to say, listen, we're closing down our physical stores, closing down physical churches. You can go to the website, whatever. Okay, fine. You don't do the VR stuff. You don't got to do it on the metaverse. Just go to the website. You can stream the service there, or you can just go to walmart.com. Okay, well, what happens when 75% of the people now, again, 15, 20 years later, are plugged in VR? That's how they're accessing it. How long before Walmart says, listen, we're not keeping that old dinosaur website running anymore. I'm sorry. You're going to have to log on, or you're just going to have to shop someplace else. Again, if you don't think that that's where things are going to go, I don't know what to tell you. And if you don't think that the church is going to go that same exact way, I have 2 bridges in Brooklyn to sell you. I don't know what to tell you. That is exactly where things are going to go unless Christians are sober-minded enough to say, listen, we're not going to do that. We believe that our religion, the church, is a physical, it has to be done in the real world. We're not doing that. People got very disillusioned. Some people loved it because it gave them an excuse not to get out of bed early and actually drive to church and have to deal with people who maybe didn't shower or aren't wearing deodorant or want to talk to you after service. It gave them a convenient excuse to stop going and doing that kind of stuff. But some people were like, listen, I can't do the online thing. I got to go in person. And they realize, taking communion is a physical thing. You can't do that virtually. They can mimic it, and you can, at home, maybe they can say, oh, get out your own crackers and let's just do it, and whatever. But it actually loses the meaning of communion as you are all in one place, eating of the same bread. You are all one body. If you're just all 50 miles apart from each other and you're just virtually in one space, eating your own cracker at home and drinking your own wine or grape juice at home or whatever soda you want to substitute for the one, it's going to demolish that whole thing. And again, if you don't think so, just consider the fact that Jesus could have come in a non-physical body. And in fact, that's one of the heresies of early Christianity, was that the Christ was just a spirit. The body, maybe he inhabited a body or took up a body, but the Christ spirit, Jesus himself, is just a spiritual being. And so he had his mind, his will, his emotions, all that kind of stuff. But he's just a spirit. That isn't what Christianity teaches. Christianity teaches that God chose to be in a body. He did not choose to be a disembodied spirit to come down and interact with us. He took on a body, and he will always be in a body. In his resurrected body, he will always be incarnated. So Christianity is not a religion that can be done absent the real world. And so, again, I just stress, again, not to tell you what is right or wrong. I mean, I can say pretty affirmatively that living in that kind of a world where we're not actually assembling one, again, you can say, well, we're just doing it in the virtual space. I don't care. That's not real. That's, it's not real life. You can't touch that other person. You can't wash their feet. And you can wash their virtual feet. Again, you cannot actually wash their feet and serve them in that way. It has to be done in person. That definitely would be wrong. And the church has to avoid that. But the only way it can is if Christians are sober-minded enough to deal with the Lord and say, okay, God, where is the red line for me? And if you don't think about that, if you don't think about where on the Romans 14 spectrum, as far as VR, augmented reality, you are in this, you will just go along with the world. And every step along the way, you will justify it by saying, well, this isn't really sin. It's not really sin to own a Vision Pro. It's not really a sin to, how is it fundamentally any different than putting a filter on my picture before I put it online? Maybe we should ask questions about whether that's justifiable too. But, at what point would you ever determine that it's sin? You'll just get hooked into it. It has to be done in the real world. And increasingly, you're going to have to be willing to suffer. Life will become harder. You will be mocked because, again, when you're the only person walking around without those stupid goggles on your face, you're going to get mocked. How many people that don't own iPhones or smartphones? It's just like this old dinosaur back here who's got a flip phone or whatever. He doesn't even own a cell phone. You're going to get to the point where you're mocked for it. You're going to have a reason why I'm not doing this and why I'm not going along with it. That has to be in place long before you reach that point. Because when you reach the point that you're already at the bottom of the slippery slope, it's too late to go back up it. You have to never get onto that slide. I can firmly and biblically say Jesus would not use, okay, I shouldn't say he wouldn't use. Jesus didn't do the Apple Vision Pro. Jesus didn't do virtual reality. He came to the earth in a physical body, and he died on a cross in a physical body. He didn't just send his consciousness. He didn't just send his spirit. He sent himself. So again, I can't make that decision for you. Mine is I'm never going to do it. I'm just not going to wear the VR. I'll never own it. We'll never own one in my home. I've already talked to my fiance, said, listen, we can't control what happens in other people's homes. We're not doing this. We're not going down this route. We're not going to own these things. So if anyone's listening that's inclined to get us it for Christmas, don't bother. We will hand it right back to you, or better yet, we'll turn it in for store credit for $3,500. So that's the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one. While Faith and Focus is a ministry of mine as a missionary within faith, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast or lived out by guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of In Faith as a mission.